Hey everybody, Jamie Starr here. We should be live. Let me just send out the updates. So thinking, I know in the title I have it switched up. I'm thinking instead of just, New World News Network headlines and all that stuff, thinking maybe we should start calling this little podcast the Fascist Funhouse because I've been let me put it like this. I've been observing a lot of the things going on with the sort of right-wing media, YouTube figures, personalities and things like that. So I kind of have a bit of gossipy kind of stuff, I guess, to get into that I want to start off the show with. Lionel from Lionel Nation. If anyone checks out his channel, he's a frequent contributor on the David Knight Show and stuff like that. And he's got this, I'd call it you could say theory, but it's basically proven. So I don't know if maybe it's a hypothesis or whatever the science term may be. But he's got this, premise that you can understand everything about politics through a lens of professional wrestling. And let me tell you, it works a lot better than, trying to understand the world through a lens of intersectionality. And, I see it more and more. And not even in the necessarily political realm, but in the commenter realm, when things devolve into gossip. The video specifically I'm referencing is I watched Owen Benjamin this week have this squabble with Nicholas Fuentes. And I mean, if you were to see Owen's video where he starts the one off saying, "Dear Nick, whatever," it's a professional wrestling promo. So one of the videos I'm going to do is I'm basically going to do a video presentation extrapolating on Lionel's theory of what a face would be, what a heel would be. I mean, because even Hillary Clinton. All right, think about it like this: in professional wrestling, a heel's job is to make the audience dislike them. The heel is basically the villain. They're the bad guy. So what does a heel generally do? Well, one of the main things a heel will do to try to get heat from the audience. Heat is another professional wrestling term. It means when you're being negatively received. Now, you could have heat in the locker room with the other competitors, but a good heel will want heat from the audience. So Hillary, what does she do? She goes out, Trump supporters are xenophobic, homophobic, racist, basket of deplorables. She's insulting the audience as a professional wrestler would. So Hillary Clinton, perfect heel. Owen Benjamin, though, cuts this promo where he's basically like, I was good to you, then the knives came out, and, this, and that. And Nick is watching this, and I have to say, kudos to Nick, because he dismantled Owen. And, a lot of people talk a lot of shit about Owen. One of the other things I saw this week that I thought was just, God, lack of self-awareness. So, a few weeks ago, I went down to New York City for Pride weekend to get clips of all of that. That's where I got the clip of the religious, 6 religious people against the LGBT mob. But I had interviewed John, who's friends with some of the walkaway people. Great guy. And then through him, I'm trying to set up an interview with Mike Harlow. Mike Harlow, I see one day on Facebook going on about how he's trying to set up a podcast, but everyone that he's asked that's a little bit bigger than... Oh? Do we have Paul calling in? Okay, Paul is here now. What's going on, Paul? Hello?
Hey, man.
Hey, what's going on? Are you there?
One sec.
Okay. Alright, so we'll wait for him to call back. So, as I was saying real quick, Mike Harlow's online complaining that the, handful of people he reached out to start his new podcast have all sort of been like, no, you're too controversial, you're too whatever, you're too this, and that. And as far as I can tell, he isn't even out there enough to be controversial. The thing I think the problem is, though, is because he talks very openly about, life as a gay man or whatever, and is very forthcoming about things, doesn't bite his tongue. I think the real issue there is he reminds conservatives that most homosexuals are not equal to heterosexuals. There's complete lifestyle differences, there's complete perspective differences. The whole equality thing is very warped. Now, I'm not saying one is better than or greater than the other. Two things can be different and in their own categories and everything like that. But it's not going to be good for mainstream conservatism, who's just coming around to all this stuff, to start acknowledging it. So that's just the hand he's dealt. But from that, I see him one day posting this thing about how no one will come and help him launch this platform, to then posting this article about Owen Benjamin's descent into alt-right whatever. I don't even know what the term alt-right means at this rate. Because when you're talking, like, alt-right to me was generally like the, people who care about demographic changes and, want a white majority country and all that stuff, which, it's all fine and dandy. I think there's interesting arguments that some of them make, especially like, why is Israel allowed to be an ethno-state and not these other people? Because most of your mainstream conservatives are all rah-rah Israel. That'll bring me to another point that Nick mentioned that I thought was very, very interesting. Far more interesting than all this gossipy shit. So anyway, so then he's posting this article, and even people in the comments are like, isn't Owen married to a Latino woman? This, and that. And it's like, well, yeah, he is. So obviously he's not for building a white ethno-state and exiling his sons and all of that other nonsense. But it's like, it's almost like I felt like Mike failed to see, like, you're in the same boat with Owen. And this is an issue that I think a lot of conservatives are going to run into. Not a lot of conservatives, let me rephrase that. The people, because, we have these conservatives, all of them, whether it be Paul Joseph Watson, the gamut, any of them, with politics is downstream from culture. Andrew Breitbart said politics is downstream from culture. Where's your fucking culture? That's all I want to know at this rate. Where is the conservative, pro-America, pro-tradition, pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment? Where the fuck is this conservative culture? Because I'll tell you what the problem is. Anyone who is right-wing, who would be capable of creating a culture being media, music, entertainment. I mean, Joy Villa, for example. She came out, she wore the MAGA dress, and next thing you know, some pictures surfaced of her, and she was wearing, and she speaks openly about when she was a liberal, when she was doing drugs, how she got pregnant, her backstory, she seems like a very sweet woman, very forthcoming, but once she came out into the spotlight, it immediately, the right wing became the left wing, and it became this whole, well, you weren't always our image of perfect. So, you're a Christian, what about this Scientology? They immediately came out with the knives trying to tear her apart. Milo, another person where not as much a cultural figure, but, he wants this new role as a late night host and everything. Well, he says some controversial things, so the knives come out on Milo. Owen Benjamin's a comedian. He is capable of building and creating culture for right-wing people. The knives came out on Owen. And Owen, as Nick points out, his ego is so damaged at this point. Poor Owen. His ego is so damaged at this point that someone just acts blasé about doing a live stream with him, and he flies off the fucking rails into a professional wrestling promo about the moon landing and all of this other stuff that, as Nick says, he couldn't care less about, and then accusing Nick of taking money from Israel and all of this other stuff, when this is coming from someone who was in the good graces of Hollywood, who came from the entertainment industry, who came from all of this. Nick, though, the very interesting thing that Nick mentioned was trips to Israel being offered from him, and Jews essentially trying to offer him money and women and all of this other stuff if he just buys into the neocon agenda. He was offered a job with Daily Wire and all this other stuff, which I think is so creepy. Like, it puts the rebel trip to Israel into a new light, where it's like almost like there's this neocon political structure, and in order to get into it, you have to take a pilgrimage to Israel or some shit. I mean, God, I would love to hear Nick extrapolate on that, but there might not be much to extrapolate on, because Cassie Dillon or whatever, I guess, offered him the trip. I would like to hear from someone who took the trip and then decided not to follow through on the offer afterwards. But anyway, as I was saying, hold on, let me see what Paul's saying here. So, as I was saying, unfortunately, I think all of the people... Yep.
I can't hear you.
Why not? It could be because the program... Alright everyone, I'm gonna exit out of the program, call Paul, and then be right back. No, it's the program. Alright, so we're gonna stop the stream and then do this. And just remember everyone, this is Paul's fault because he told me to do it like this.